So we start? Okay, so hello, my name is Diana SoriaHernandez. I am a visual artist with biggest interest in performance art. I have done a lot of different mediums, drawing, ceramics, painting, but performance art is at the core of my interests. I started doing performance art when I arrived in Finland, and I think I wouldn't have done performance if I wouldn't have moved here. I came to study printmaking, and I discovered as I did printmaking that I was more interested in the process of making print than in having a final object like repeatedly, endlessly. So I started exploring this process. I would, in the lithographic studio, I would climb on the stones and I would do all kind of different experiments with different materials like after hours. And that was kind of my beginning. And then lately I also got a camera and I started exploring, making little videos, basically with my hands and objects and nature, kind of as if the hand was by itself like, maybe like a body. And this was one of my beginnings is as a performance, but I never thought I was a performer. It was later that this came. As I was finishing my studies as a printmaker, I became more and more aware of performance. I felt a little bit shy about it, so I was not really convinced that was my thing. Still, I liked very much performing for the camera, but I did that more like intimately, more privately, so it was not like live performance. I felt that very comfortable. I very much enjoyed the editing part. I used to watch a lot of cinema, so that felt really connected. After some years, I started wanting to do more and more, like bigger scale, coming out of the hands. The frame was only framing the hands. So then my whole body started coming into the frame of the camera. After some 2 or 3 years, I applied to the live art and performance studies, and I got in. Maybe my first live performance was in the entrance examination. I never did anything before, and as I said, I felt almost even a little bit shy about it. But yeah, I got in the studies, and well, then I learned a whole other aspect of performance that was maybe not performance art, but like performing in general, like that goes like from rituals to politics to different, like the whole word of performance, which is like very unique to the English language. It doesn't translate the same into other languages. So over the years, performance art has changed what it is for me. So maybe in the beginning it was something it was a medium that I didn't even consider it as something by itself. But then later when I started watching performance and studying performance, I understood how it really would fit to my practice. And for me, performance art now is kind of like what connects, is the art form. It's my favorite art form in the way that it's what allows me to connect between, in a context, in a place, with the audience, with the objects. It's like a thread that puts everything together and that allows things to happen. Unlike creating objects, like when I was doing printmaking or when I have been doing ceramics, the process was the most important. It's always the most important for me. So the final object, I could like it, but then I had a problem. I had an object, and I'm not especially okay, you can sell it, that's good. In performance, it's different. Of course, you can get hired to make a performance. But this thing of making objects and then having to live with all these objects of your own, at some point it became a little bit uncomfortable. And I liked this freedom of making a performance that it's ephemeral, that it happens in a moment and in a place and in a time, and then it's gone. You have the documentation, but still compared like to the space that documentation takes, I'm much more comfortable with that than with the actual object when I was producing prints or other kind of objects. So this was very appealing to me, and I started understanding also how performance would work with my human scale. So I'm a small person, and I have lots of limitations, bodily also, like in what I can do in scale. So I started taking that as something very characteristic of me, my strength, which is not so much, or my long hair, which could, now I cut it a bit, but that I could use it for communicating. And this is something I started appreciating very much from performance art, that every person had something very characteristic of their own. The performance was for me an art form that can keep things very open. Of course, there's performance that are very much produced or repeated, but for me, what I was interested, like personally, there's many ways of doing it, but for me, what I was personally interested is what elements could I put together that could create maybe sensations, maybe things that I myself didn't know how to put in words, or things that I was just processing. And then this would reflect and echo on the people that would be there as my audience. Creating with the audience is very important for me as well. So I think performance is one of these few art forms that can give and take agency. So at some point the audience also has agency. They can maybe collaborate, maybe they can interfere, or maybe not. And if you can open that door, that possibility, with finished objects like a painting, the possibilities are different. It's more individual, it's more independent. Of course, the audience will take something home and make own interpretations and will get moved, but the dynamics happen very differently. Here is much more collective, and I think many times the people that are doing performance, they are looking something in these regards of the collective, of the doing things maybe together. So performance has, in a way, it feeds from my everyday life, and my everyday life feeds my performance. They are completely intertwined. And I think that's also why I started making performance in Finland, because it helped me to process many changes, like especially the seasons. I have this one long process making a project called Seasonal Hobbies, and I mean, it's about trying to understand and to deal with the seasons that are so different and so new to me. And that was really fascinating way. It creates a relationship with something that otherwise maybe you don't have. Because when you move from one continent to another in a different, completely different landscape and nature-wise, you just have to adapt. So maybe we don't think about it like that we need to create a bond with winter, but we do. So we don't have like childhood memories I didn't have like to remember the snow and this kind of thing, so I had to create one. And this is also a tool for me to get through life. So I've been doing also performances with food. That's also a very basic thing that also relates us to the new context, to the new place, to the new society. And I think this is always there present. Even like in our own societies, we always need to process life, to process emotions, griefs, experiences, and performance. I think it helps us to get through that, and that's why it feeds, it relates to everyday life. And that's also a wonderful thing, that you can make art, like, it's not about making art per se, it's about like building this connection, yeah? So with everyday objects, what other art form can give you that? That can give you the possibility to make a piece to express yourself with a fork, just a fork that you have at home, or a cup that you have in your hand because you are drinking a coffee in that moment. So it's just a way of expressing yourself with your body that you have and the tools or the objects that are just there besides you. So that's a fascinating thing for performance, from performance art. And it doesn't, as I said, it doesn't really need to be art. I'm teaching a class, it's called experimental painting. And what I tell my students is we are there to paint as a verb, not to make paintings as objects. And this is super important because when the students like are super worried about if they're going to make a pretty painting, then it's mostly going to be a disaster. Like the process is, it's not important for them and they're just focused on having a result. And we lose everything there. So if I can convince the students to just focus on the painting and focus on the observation, then it's much more, it's playful, it's enriching us. We can share also. And then in the end, if the painting is good or not, that's secondary. That's not what I'm interested in when I'm teaching. I would say that for me the most important thing would be to learn like observation of the context, observation of oneself, like this awareness of how am I doing something? Because many times we do something without really being aware of how our body is maybe moving or how we are asking something or the potential that an object has. It's playful. It's mainly playful. And I think there's few activities we can do as adults that can be like so playful and creative and that we can just break, change, transform like what an object is into another thing. And this creates like this other dimension to things. And yeah, I think that's what I would like to explore. And always, everybody has new ideas. I think everybody can think something like very creatively, like outside of the box, as it's commonly said. I think that would be my main invitation. I also believe firmly, I think everybody has something to say, but not to say like with words, but to put out there, to explore. And this is that chance, like to do it with your body, with objects, and in this place that we will have here for the workshop. The difference between of this performance art practice that we're talking about here and that this invitation is for is it's more directed like to the performance art that is like in the visual arts field, not so much in the dance or in the theater. This is just like very kind of like academic or institutionalized like mentality, but it's important to mention it so that you kind of understand what we are like working. It's a performance art that does not necessarily require like dancing skills or like music skills, but is more like what can you do? It's more conceptual. So it's what can you do with your body, with objects, with a space, with a context. Like how would you do something in this place that we're right now, or in the forest? So how does that change? That's kind of what we're thinking about. Like, how do we relation? Like, what is the relation? In other performing arts, you have dance, for example. You rehearse a piece. Well, I'm not a dancer, but this is what I imagine it happens. But you rehearse a piece, and then you can adapt that piece to different places. But here is more about like, how do we create a relation? If we are in the forest, with what elements can you work? And then that's a completely different piece than the piece that you would do in like this shopping mall like this. So, or in a library, like what do you do then? What are your objects? With what elements are you working? What relationships can come out? And of course you need like maybe humor, and it's much more conceptual. It's more like, yeah, intertwining things more than performing a skill. So this invitation for you to join the second edition of Sidewalk, that it's this project part of the other side, is for learning, like exploring performance art from the very simple things that you might have that you want to explore, like action with your body, objects, and the space, that relationship with those elements. Yeah, we're gonna do different exercises, we will work together, we will get to know other people that are working in the field, other artists, professionals, and it's mainly an invitation for doing something playful and creative. We will set our boundaries during the performance sessions, and it's very free, but it does require commitment, that we can stay there and try to imagine things. Imagination is super important. And yeah, that's my invitation to you.